Most of us share a similar vision for our later years, a quiet transition away from full-time work, funded by decades of disciplined saving. We follow the standard advice, max out the retirement accounts, and trust conventional math to carry us through. That math usually centers on one foundational pillar, the 4% rule. The idea is straightforward. If you withdraw exactly 4% of your total portfolio each year, adjusting for inflation, your money should easily outlast your lifespan. But look at this line graph tracking a standard 20-year retirement timeline. What used to be a stable 4% withdrawal rate now sharply diverges into a steep curve, hitting 0 years before it should. The foundational logic we have relied on for decades is mathematically failing. Thousands of current retirees are discovering this mathematical failure in real time. Their carefully planned life savings are depleting at an alarming rate, forcing them into sudden, drastic lifestyle cuts never anticipated. Market crashes and everyday inflation are not driving this rapid depletion. The true cause traces back to a series of deliberate, quiet, systemic rule shifts written into federal code, all scheduled to take effect by 2026. Mainstream financial media has been noticeably quiet about what tax professionals are calling the 2026 401k surprise. A massive slate of structural changes to retirement accounts is looming, and very few people are talking about the details. Ignoring these approaching 2026 adjustments leaves a portfolio vulnerable to a system that no longer functions the way it did 30 years ago. Relying on outdated math makes total financial exposure nearly inevitable. Abstract market calculations are only the first hurdle. The actual mechanisms of retirement are filled with everyday bureaucratic traps, specifically designed to extract wealth through enforced ignorance of the fine print. Let's say you make a routine account rollover. You have exactly 60 days to finalize this post-retirement decision. Miss that narrow, poorly advertised window, and you trigger severe tax liabilities that can immediately cost you thousands of dollars. We see a similar tactic with required minimum distributions, or RMDs, the mandatory minimum amounts the government forces you to withdraw from your retirement accounts each year. Obscure new calculations for these distributions specifically target older demographics, sharply increasing their annual tax burdens. Homeowners age 62 and older are facing equally quiet updates. Regulations governing reverse mortgages have been completely rewritten, altering how home equity is accessed, yet these crucial changes received almost zero public attention. These penalties can be triggered by surprisingly simple actions. Look at this flowchart mapping a standard banking transaction. Moving your own money from a personal account in specific patterns can now automatically trigger a massive $10,000 penalty from the IRS. The system uses hidden algorithmic triggers to flag these specific transfer patterns. The bank's software reports the movement directly to the agency, entirely bypassing the account holder until the penalty is already processed and finalized. There is a unified structure to all these financial traps. They rely entirely on a lack of awareness. They generate revenue precisely by penalizing retirees who only learn a rule exists after the fine has been levied. These unpublicized bureaucratic shifts are also manifesting in the physical world, impacting how easily a retiree can move and travel. The DMV is currently rolling out targeted rule changes for drivers aged 65 and older. These stringent new renewal requirements make it drastically easier for the state to permanently revoke a senior citizen's driver's license. We are also seeing a sudden influx of reports from airports across the country. Seniors 70 and older are being turned away at security checkpoints due to new, unpublicized travel documentation regulations that effectively ground them. These strict new barriers to movement and travel are taking effect on the exact same timeline as the financial changes. With these barriers appearing on the same timeline as the financial penalties, the result is a dual pressure point that limits both a senior's economic resources and their geographic mobility. There is a distinct motive behind keeping the public in the dark. The financial bureaucracy directly bolsters its own balance sheets by collecting these sudden penalties and retaining the benefits that uninformed citizens forfeit. We can see this clearly in the newly altered Social Security spousal rules. This side-by-side bar chart compares two scenarios. On the left is the minimal standard payout and uninformed senior accepts. On the right is the massive maximum allowable spousal benefit they unknowingly forfeit. By keeping this single spousal rule obscure, the bureaucratic system avoids paying out millions. That is a massive aggregate total saved annually, simply because people don't know what to ask for. Yet amidst these sweeping changes, there is an elite class of individuals who navigate this transition without ever struggling financially. They avoid the penalties, maximize their benefits, and maintain their complete autonomy. This group manages these transitions by bypassing general advice and instead monitoring internal policy shifts and the specific language of the tax code long before changes take effect. These insiders operate under the assumption that generalized financial advice often fails to account for the specific, obscure regulations that can trigger the most significant losses. Surviving the impending 2026 rule changes means letting go of blind trust in the traditional American retirement system. Success now requires adopting a deeply investigative mindset, questioning the public narrative, reading the fine print, and taking absolute control